You are about to enter Habs After Dark with Recliner Sports.
3, 2, 1, 0.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Habs After Dark. My name is Devin. We are coming off a Team Canada win over Finland, 5-3, and let's talk about it. I don't know if you guys are ready to talk about this game or not, but I am, and so I'm going to start talking about it, and I would love for you guys to participate in the chat. If you're here already, then certainly join in the comments. I see there are a few people over on TikTok. If you want to join the show, then the instructions are on the screen behind me. You can come over, open up your YouTube app, and hit or search for Recliner Sports 4. And come on and join the conversation. Unfortunately, we're not going to be taking questions over on TikTok. But if you do want to talk about the game, come on over to YouTube. I will continue to ramble on here as people slowly come into the room. I see Mike Leochi was here. Canada's strong start is why they won. Binnington was shaky yet again in net. They got to consider starting Hill Thursday night. And Ryan Hogan, a.k.a. Hoagie, says, good afternoon, Devin. Good afternoon, Hoagie. Welcome to the show. I disagree with you, Mike. I don't think they're going to change Binnington right now. I don't know that I would say that Binnington looks shaky. I think the entire team looks shaky in those last 5 minutes. I don't know that I would pin that on Binnington, and I don't think that it makes any sense to change your goalie at this stage of the tournament. I think that Binnington would have to be far more problematic if they're going to consider doing anything like that. I don't think it's a time to make that change going into the final. It just doesn't seem to make sense to me. I mean, again, if Binnington was absolutely disastrous, then it might be something that you would consider. But again, short of that, I don't see them moving away from their original plan to stick with Binnington all the way through. If you are here, guys, watching the show live, please hit that subscribe button down below. If you're watching in a replay, same thing. If you are not yet subscribed, please do so. It helps us grow our channel. It helps us grow a community which we're trying to build, a community where everybody can come and have intelligent, civil conversations about hockey. Typically, we focus on the Montreal Canadiens, but we're certainly willing to talk about any team. And of course, right now, we are focused on the Four Nations face-off and Team Canada. So again, Team Canada with a 5-3 victory over Finland this afternoon. A good start, an average middle, and a shaky finish. So we'll talk about that a little bit more. And like I said, if you guys want to join in, then this is meant to be an interactive show. If you want to be a part of it, then you join in and get in the comment section and start firing away with your questions. If you are enjoying the content, give us a thumbs up. Again, the like button is just there down below. And if you're over there on TikTok, then come on over and join us on YouTube. So we'll go through a few different things here, guys, as we typically do. We'll do a scoreboard and we'll do an A team. The A team, of course, is our version, the Recliner Sports version of the 3 stars of the game. We picked the 4 players for Canada that we believe were the best on the ice, that contributed, that were the biggest impact players. And we basically theme it after the famous 1980s television show, The A Team, which some of the older members in here will remember, but some of the younger people probably have no idea who that means or what that means. Again, there were 4 different members of the A-Team, Hannibal, Face, Murdoch, and B.A. Most of you guys, even your younger guys, will know B.A. as Mr. T. That was sort of the role that sent Mr. T to fame early on in his career. Just having a quick little Mai Tai while we talk here, guys. John Maxwell, great name, John Maxwell. Come on over and join us on YouTube. My name is also, last name is also Maxwell. So, again, we got 5 people in here now. Come on, guys, let's get this going so we can start chatting about the game. What did you think about the game? Do you have any comments? What are your thoughts? My biggest takeaway from the game is that I was disappointed to see Canada go into that defensive shell late in the game. For me, today's game was an opportunity for them to build momentum heading into the final and to get some of their star players, their offensive producers, to get some of those guys untracked and firing on all cylinders heading into a final against the U.S., which will certainly be a bigger challenge than tonight's game was. So for me, early, the start with, McKinnon and McDavid scoring early, it was a great start. Obviously those are the guys that you want to be producing. Those are the guys that you want to see, having an impact on the scoreboard, and that was great. And, carrying it through the second period, goals, another goal by McKinnon, of course, the goal by Braden Point at the end of the first period. All of that was good, but for some reason, Canada decided to sort of take their foot off the gas in the third period and play more of a defensive style game and sort of shut things down. And to me, they should have just buried Finland. They should have tried to score 6, 7, 8 goals just to carry that offensive momentum into the final. They've struggled to score throughout the tournament. They struggled to score against Sweden. They struggled to get offense going against the U.S. And so, to get that whole process running, or get that team firing on all cylinders, was the highest priority here tonight. And again, we saw, typically that defensive shell and that, going into that shutdown mode typically doesn't work. And I'm not sure why they did it. I'm not sure why they took the foot off the pedal. I don't know why they slowed down. They needed to just continue to push. But it is what it is. They came out with the win. They will play in the final on Thursday. Thursday against the U.S. But unfortunately, they're not carrying that momentum that I would have liked to have seen them carry into it. So, Mike says, last 10 minutes, Canada sat back on the lead. It felt like watching the Habs play. Canada can't do that on Thursday versus U.S. Well, they can't do it against anyone. And I don't think they'll have the opportunity to do that against the U.S. I think the game will be too close for them to sit back. Again, for me, it was all about carrying the momentum. And this game provided, obviously, Canada needed to win this game. But again, I think they certainly were the better team than Finland. And, they had an opportunity to use this game against Finland, especially after they got off to an early lead. I think they had the opportunity to really, make an impact and send a message offensively, and not just to the U.S. but to themselves that, okay, guys, we're ready to do this. And McDavid's firing and McKinnon's firing and Crosby's firing, and our second, they're still not getting really any contribution from the secondary scoring. I mean, their first two lines seem to be okay, but where's Mitch Marner been? Right? Where's Brad Marchand been? Brad Marchand had a goal, I think, in the first game, but and of course, Marner had the overtime winner against Sweden, but again, he's really been largely invisible. He was invisible for the better part of that Sweden game. He was invisible against the U.S., and he was pretty invisible today. So again, this was an opportunity to get, the rest of the team going and get some offensive, momentum, and they just didn't take advantage of it. And I was, that to me is the biggest disappointment coming out of this game. The Nova Scotia lads are doing well. Yeah, they are. I mean, Brad Marchand is doing okay. I don't think he's doing anything spectacular. But again, Crosby and McKinnon and McDavid have, to a certain degree been carrying the team. And, Reinhart and Point have been pretty good, as far as offensive production is concerned. But again, there are certain members that, just have been, largely invisible for Team Canada. We look at guys like, Stone has been kind of invisible. Cirelli obviously is playing a different role. Like Cirelli is playing more of a defensive role, so we wouldn't expect a ton from him or from Hagel. Konechny obviously hasn't really done a whole lot. Bennett has been invisible, I thought. Obviously he had the fight against the U.S. and he had a decent, game as far as, agitating and getting out there and throwing the body around against the U.S., but he certainly didn't really contribute that much offensively. And again, Marner has just been on a disappearing trick, right? Like it's, he's just kind of hasn't done anything, right? Everybody, accused me of being biased against Toronto when I suggested that he might not be the best choice for this team. And then, of course, all those same people came out and tried to ridicule me after he scored the overtime winner against Sweden. But again, I just don't feel like he's been that great. And again, I'm not going to suggest that he shouldn't have made the team because I think he obviously offensively deserves to be there. He's one of the better offensive producers, that Canada has available to them. but he just hasn't been doing it. He hasn't been doing it. So Finland caught hot when Canada fell asleep, was looking scary there for the last 5 minutes. Yeah, Hoagie, I agree. Again, I think that it wasn't so much that Canada fell asleep. I think that Canada decided that they were going to go into a defensive shell and just ride out the rest of the game. And you can't do that. These are good hockey players, right? You're not playing against, the Seattle Kraken or the Anaheim Ducks or the San Jose Sharks. You're playing against, the best players in the world, right? You're playing against Mikko Rantanen, Sebastian Aho, Patrick Laine, Michael Granlund. Like, these are good hockey players. If you give them some room, they're going to take advantage of it, right? And they did. And so to me, I thought it was a big mistake to sort of shut things down in the last, basically the entire third period. But last 10 minutes, Canada sat back on the lead. Yes, sorry, we already dealt with that, Mike. Brad is getting very minimal minutes on the third and fourth line. Well, yeah, but that's the whole idea of playing on the third and fourth line, is you aren't going to get the minutes that you're typically used to, right? You're going to get, Brad Marchand had 14 minutes today, right? That's not minimal minutes. That's more than enough time to make an impact on the game, and so you have to accept a role like that when you play on a team like this, right? You have to accept that role. And you have to, make the best of your opportunities when they come, right? And so you have to use those 14 minutes to do, what you're capable of during those 14 minutes. Guys, I see you asking questions over on TikTok. Come on over to the YouTube channel. The channel is called Recliner Sports 4. If you want to ask questions, come on over and join us here. Unfortunately, I'm not answering questions on TikTok, only on YouTube. So, again, everybody's more than welcome. Joel, I see you there. I see you as well, Bob. Come on over and let us know what you thought about the game. If you want to talk about it, we're more than happy to have you join the conversation here. Was thinking exact same thing, watching the game, no secondary scoring. Yeah, they're not. They're not getting any secondary scoring. And, that's, been a problem right there. Reinhart, obviously contributed quite a bit today. Even Crosby, Crosby's had a couple points, but again, he hasn't really been, and again, he's playing injured. And he's bringing a lot of things other than just his offensive production. But anyways, it is what it is. I just would have liked to have seen them just keep pumping away at the goal and just bury Finland going into that final. If for nothing else than just to carry some momentum. I expected more. I think you're trying to say, Mike, from Marchand and Marner, especially Marchand when the game is in Boston. Hope that changes on Thursday. Yeah, I do too. I think both of those guys have a lot to contribute. And if they're going to play, 12, 13, 14 minutes, then they need to do more. Obviously both of those guys are good two-way defensive players. And, obviously they're, you expect them to also contribute on the defensive side. And I think they're probably doing that to an extent. But again, if they're going to be on the second line or even the third line, they need to, to have a more of an impact on the game. So especially Marner. Marner's just been completely invisible. He's completely disappeared, and he hasn't been, he's just, he's a non-factor. I don't want to say he's a passenger, but he's been a non-factor. I don't know what you're talking about. He has been playing great. Who are we talking about, Cosmo? I don't know who we're talking about. You tell me who you think's been playing great, and I'll certainly be more than happy to discuss it with you. You let me know. But welcome, Cosmo. I think you're new here, so welcome. It's great to have you. And if you're not yet following us, give us a follow. And if you haven't hit the thumbs up button, guys, if you're here watching and you enjoy the content, give us a thumbs up, like the show, and we certainly appreciate that. And if you're not subscribed, then of course we would love for you to subscribe. So we got a few people here watching now. Let's have a quick look at the scoreboard. Of course, we have the final is 5-3 for Canada. We'd like to go through the scoring, and then we like to go through some of the advanced stats as well. And we'll do that. I think the one thing I would point out, since I made this graphic before we went on the air, they've added an assist on the first Michael Granlund goal. You'll see it's listed there as unassisted. They have given an assist to Patrick Laine on that goal, which will be good news to Montreal Canadiens fans, I guess. Laine had a pretty Quiet first couple periods, but he certainly was a big part of the offense for Finland in the third period, and he played a big role in that little run that they took towards the end of the game. Period one early, 4 minutes into the game, Connor McDavid, again, with a fantastic individual effort. He gets the puck, he intercepts a pass at the blue line, he goes in, thinks better of going to the net. He turns around, regroups, and then goes in again, and he beats the Finnish goalie, who at that time was Lankinen. And then McKinnon on a nice play from Reinhart and Hagel. Shortly thereafter, I think about 40 seconds later, makes it 2-0. And again, it looks like Canada's well on their way, and they were for sure. Braden Point adds another one in that first period to make it 3-0 Canada after one. Just the one goal in the second period. McKinnon with his second of the game from Crosby and Reinhart at 5:03, and Canada is up 4-0. And at that point, they I felt like they kind of shut things down a little bit. I'm not sure why. They did, but they kind of shut things down, and they kind of turned the offense off a little bit, which I thought was disappointing. They looked like they were just going to try and ride the game out, and it looked like they were going to be able to do that, but unfortunately for them, Esa Lindell scores at right around the 13-minute mark, I believe, to make it 4-1, giving Finland a little bit of life. And then in the last few minutes, Finland pulls their goalie. Granlund scores 2 goals in relatively quick succession, about a minute and a half, 2 minutes apart. The first one, again, as I mentioned, from Patrick Laine. The second one from Barkov and Aho. Both goals scored after relatively prolonged pressure in the Canadian zone, 6-on-5. And all of a sudden, it's 4-3, right? And Canada needs to win this game in regulation. They can't win it in overtime. I mean, they can, but they then give Sweden a bit of a lifeline if they do that. If they win in regulation, they guarantee themselves a spot in the final on Thursday. If they win in overtime, then Sweden, of course, has a chance. If they beat the U.S. in regulation, they have a chance to play in the final. And so it's 4-3, and there's about a minute and a half left in the game. The Finns are all over the Canadians, and Sidney Crosby gets on the ice, and he kind of saves the day, makes a really nice play, goes out there, takes a hit at center ice, and basically puts the puck right in the middle of the net from the red line. Another assist for Reinhart. I believe that's 3 assists for Reinhart on the night. A very good game for him. But again, Crosby comes in and shows a little bit of composure and a little bit of veteran leadership. And he puts the game out of reach, and he ends the threat or whatever that Finland was mounting at the end of the game there. So Cosmo says Marner has been playing good. He had a slow day today, but you can't just forget his other games. He's been invisible, Cosmo, the entire tournament. He did absolutely nothing against Sweden. He scored the overtime winner, obviously, and that can't be discredited. But he was, a non-factor for that entire game up until scoring that goal. He did absolutely nothing against the United States on Saturday night. And as you say, he had a slow day today and was, did absolutely nothing today. 0 shots on goal today. Let's see. 0 shots on goal today. He had... stand by. 1 shot on goal on Saturday against the U.S. And he had... two shots on goal against Sweden, one of those being the overtime winner. So in 3 games, he's had 3 shots on goal with 1 goal, 0 assists, and he is a minus... stand by. He is a minus... a -2. So he's a -2. He has 1 goal, 0 assists, and just 3 shots on goal in 3 games. So again, that's not the contributions that you would expect from a player like Mitch Marner. So to suggest that he's been playing good, I think is false. Again, he's a great hockey player, which is partially why you expect more from him. But again, he's not had a good tournament. He's been largely invisible, and he hasn't played that well. And again, I mean, that's, those are factual findings. They're not, those are not me making things up. That's not me, hating on Mitch Marner. Again, I'm not suggesting that he shouldn't be on the team. I think he's more than deserving of being on this team. After the way he's played this year, I think he's, could Mark Scheifele be there? Could, other players be there as well? Yeah, absolutely. But again, he's been a good player, and he deserves to be there. He's had a great season so far, and he had a great season last year. So, but again, he's just not, he's not made any type of impact on the game so far in this tournament. There's a lot of other guys you can pick on before Marner. His job on this team isn't to shoot the puck; it's to create chances. Okay, I disagree with that. His role on this team is to be offensively productive, and he hasn't done that. So again, you can talk about shots and you can talk about making plays. He's not been productive. And you're right. There are other players, and I've already talked about other players who haven't been productive. Right. I talked about Sidney Crosby not being that productive. I talked about Brad Marchand not being productive. I talked about the lack of secondary scoring overall. So again, I'm not picking on one player. I get that I get that you're likely a Toronto Maple Leafs fan and you can't stand the fact that somebody's talking negatively about one of your players. But I certainly, didn't single Marner out. The only reason we're really talking about Marner now is because you've prolonged the conversation about it, right? He hasn't been good, period. Is he the only one who hasn't been good? No, he hasn't. Seth Jarvis hasn't really contributed that much offensively, but that wasn't really expected from him. Brad Marchand hasn't really contributed offensively. Mark Stone hasn't really contributed offensively. So again, the secondary scoring has been lacking, and amongst those guys that I just named, Mitch Marner is the one that you would expect to be more productive, just based on his historical performances and his abilities and his offensive talent. Do I think Binner stays in the net? He does. Yeah, I don't see any reason why you would take him out of the net. I think they've made the decision to stick with him and to commit to him. And again, I don't think that he's done anything that warrants being taken out of the net at this stage of the tournament. Has he been spectacular? No. But again, it's not like Canada has spectacular options behind him. And I don't see the rationale behind, putting a guy in the goal who hasn't played yet over, again, if Binnington had been terrible, then maybe you consider it. But again, I don't think he has been terrible, and I don't think he's done anything to warrant losing the starting job. Let's look at some of the advanced stats, guys. Again, this reveals that this was a bit of a closer game than you might think if we look at some of the other stats other than just the scoreboard, guys. The shots on goal, Canada only 28-26. It was pretty close throughout the game. Even before that last 10 minutes, it was a pretty close game as far as shots on goal are concerned. The Corsi was 56-61. Which is an indication that the Finns certainly had their fair share of possession, and you could argue that they maybe even carried the play a little bit. Corsi being all shot attempts. Fenwick 43-37 in favor of Finland. So again, shots towards the goal that are not blocked. That's essentially what Fenwick is. So again, Finland, a fair margin over Canada on that category, and the high danger scoring chances, right? 12-6, right? It's largely domination by Finland there. Finland got way more high danger scoring chances. So again, if you're, on the Binnington hate train, well, that's a factor to look at right there. Is that Finland had more scoring chances from dangerous places on the ice than Canada did today, and Binnington, was able to stop those and give Canada an opportunity to win. And again, I think probably more than a few of those high danger scoring chances came in the last 10 minutes, but still, that's a pretty significant number, and maybe something that is concerning, because if they do that against the U.S., I would imagine, having half as many high danger scoring chances as the U.S. is going to be a recipe for failure. And again, expected goals 2.71 to 2.5. Again, that's pretty close. But again, it demonstrates that this maybe was not the blowout. Maybe this was not the blowout that you thought it was, or that it looked like it might be on the scoreboard. And if you think that it was only the last 10 minutes that made the big difference, the first period expected goals were 0.4 for Finland and 1 for Canada. In the second period, Finland had 1.6 to 0.6, so they dominated the second period. And in the third, that's actually on 5-on-5 only. Let me repeat that. 0.39, so 0.4 to 1 in the first period. So Canada dominated the first period, obviously. Finland dominated the second period, 2 expected goals to half an expected goal. And in the third period, believe it or not, Canada actually had 0.9 expected goals to 0.3. So it wasn't all that last 10 minutes that made the big difference on the advanced stats. There's do I think McKinnon is better than McDavid after this tournament? I think they're different, Cosmo. I think they're different. I would say that pure offensive skill and talent, McDavid is the clear better player. However, I think there are aspects of the game that McKinnon is better at. I think probably overall, I think you would probably say that McDavid is the better player right now. But there are other aspects to the game than just that pure offensive skill. Which McDavid. I mean that goal that McDavid scored in the first period was unbelievable. But yeah, I think that they're both. I think they're obviously both in the top 3 of the best players in the NHL. I don't think there's any debate about that. In fact, I think you would probably be pretty safe to say that they're 1 and 2. Right now, I would say McDavid is probably number 1. McKinnon is right there. But again, they're very different hockey players, right? They're as far as pure offensive talent, I think you give it to McDavid. But will and physicality and the sort of that bull style that McKinnon plays obviously has value as well. And so I think they're both pretty even as far as who would you rather have on your team. I think it's a pretty even battle between those two guys. If you're over on TikTok, guys, come on over to YouTube. If you want to join the conversation, come on over here. We're happy to have a chat. We're happy to talk and get into the game with you guys. We've just done our scoreboard. We will move on to our A team here shortly. Our A team, of course, is our version of the stars of the game. I see there are 7 people watching right now. If you have not yet hit the like button, do so. The thumbs up, it's right there below. And if you haven't yet subscribed, then please do so as well. The numbers are a little bit down, I guess, on Monday afternoon. I guess we don't expect to have a huge crowd in here. Undefeated Sports. McDavid was awful today. I will have to disagree with you, Undefeated Sports. I would say that McDavid was pretty good today. What are you pointing to? What is it that you saw today that would indicate to you that McDavid was awful? Canada had the refs in their back pocket. I'm Canadian, but it was awful. Okay. Again, I would ask you to maybe provide us with some basis or some support for your argument that McDavid was awful and that the refs were in the back pocket today. The refs tonight, I believe, only called the 1 penalty. Sorry, I lied. They called 3 penalties, and Canada had 2 power plays. And the Finns had the 1 power play. So there would have been I'm looking at the wrong game. Pardon me. I think there was just the 1 power play tonight, guys. Give me 1 second to bring it up here. Game Center. Yeah, so there was just 1 penalty called today. It was against Canada. It was Devon Taves for slashing against Yoel Armia. So again, I think you're pretty a little off the deep end there, Undefeated Sports, with your takes. If you're here to troll, then I don't know that we're really that interested. For the refs, Canada's third goal was offside. Then it should have been icing at the end of the game. I'll take the win, though. Okay. If the play was offside, then certainly the Finns would have had every opportunity to have that play reviewed. Again, I didn't see it being offside. I'll have a look for that. Of course, you'll know, because you're obviously a very experienced hockey fan, you'll know that the referees don't actually call offsides. It's the linesmen that do that. Again, I don't know that would have made a huge difference in the game. Obviously, I guess at the end it would have made a difference with the tie. But again, I think you're just trying to cause some shit here, which is fair, I guess, if you want to. But again, it is what it is. I'm still waiting to hear the evidence of McDavid being awful. But well, I mean, if you're saying that McDavid being awful, you're not being rude. I think you're just being, you're being ill-informed. Like you're. I mean, I don't know. Again, if you've got some sort of argument in favor of McDavid being awful tonight, are you talking about his defensive effort, his passing? Well, defensive effort, his expected goals percentage tonight was 68%. That's pretty good. Scoring chances while he was on the ice were 8-5 in his favor. Shots for while he was on the ice were 10-7 in his favor. So again, the idea that he was awful, again, defensively or otherwise is, I mean, I'm not trying to be rude either, but I mean, it's, again, it's just not, based in any real reality. Well, again, defensive effort, right? His expected goals percentage. I mean, maybe you don't know what that means, but basically it means the expected goals while he's on the ice for his team versus the expected goals on the ice for the other team while he's on the ice. Are 68% in his favor, and anything over 50 is usually pretty good. So that's a pretty impressive. He was 5th on the team in that stat. And as I said, he, on the ice for 8 scoring chances for his team and only 5 against. So again, the idea that he had a tough defense. I mean, first of all, defense isn't, sort of what you're looking for from a Connor McDavid. His contributions are in other aspects of the game. But any suggestion that he had a poor defensive performance tonight, again, is just not, it's not based in reality, which is why I suggest that you're here trying to troll. Because, you don't have any, there's no reality to support, the conclusion that McDavid played badly tonight. So you're saying he turned over the puck a bunch. Okay, let's check that out. See where that falls. Connor McDavid tonight. Giveaways. I'll give you a guess. How many giveaways do you think Connor McDavid had tonight? Let me see what you got. You said you said a bunch. He turned the puck over a bunch. So I'm not sure what a bunch means to you, but how many giveaways do you think Connor McDavid had tonight? Anyways, I'll wait for you to answer that, and we'll move on. What's going on, RDP? Sorry I didn't see you there when you first came in. Welcome. Great to see you as always. Thank you for coming by. And so let's move on to the A team, guys. I want to undo resize overlay. I want to redo that. And let's go to the A team, guys. Welcome to the show, by the way, guys, for those of you who are just joining us. We'll do the A team here. Do you have any idea? Let me see who, if you're in the live, if you're watching right now, tell me who would be your 4 stars of the game. Again, we're only picking for Canada. We're not picking for Finland. We're going to pick for. If you're over on TikTok, guys, come on over and join us on YouTube. We're talking on YouTube, guys. We're over here. The channel is Recliner Sports 4, like it says on the back of the screen. So if you're on TikTok, come on over to YouTube. We're doing a live show. You can come on over here, and we have a comment section over here. If you want to ask questions, then we would love to have you guys. The more, the merrier. Again, the only reason I've got the TikTok open is so that you guys are aware that we're doing the show and to be able to invite you guys because we'd love to have you. So, Jen, I see you there. I also see TD Mason, a few of other guys, people over there. Recliner Sports 4, Jen, is the name of the channel. But we're going to do our A team here, guys. If you have any guesses on who you think would be on the A team, then we would love to hear it. But here is the selections that I have. So there it is, guys. Connor McDavid, Braden Point, Nathan McKinnon, and Travis Sanheim. Maybe you can let me know if you think that I'm crazy, if you think that those guys or those picks are way off base, if there's anybody that you think should be on the A team that I don't have, that I haven't included, or if there is anybody that you think should be on there that I haven't mentioned. I think Sam Reinhart would certainly be an honorable mention tonight as far as his performance is concerned. He obviously had an impact on the scoreboard for sure. And Makar, I agree with you, Anonymous. Makar, I think, could be on that list as well, especially coming off the sickness and missing the previous game. I thought he had a very good game as well. I think Drew Doughty probably as well could be in the conversation. I chose ultimately to go with Sanheim. His numbers were slightly better than Doughty's. And they were, Makar, of course, Makar's numbers were not as good, but again, he plays against tougher competition typically, right? He'll be out there, more ice time, and he'll play more minutes against the other team's better players. Whereas, Sanheim's, ice time, as well as Doughty's ice time would be less so than Makar's. I get that. I get that, Anonymous, and I certainly considered it. But again, Sanheim's numbers were really quite impressive. He had, let me see if I can bring this up. So he had 68% expected goals for percentage. Scoring chances for were 10-8, and high danger scoring chances for him were 4-1, right? And that was best on the team. So he was on the ice for 4 high danger scoring chances for his team, which is more than any player on the entire Canadian team, right? Considering the ice time that he played, that's an impressive number. And he was on the ice for just 1 high danger. I don't love that. Why did that happen? That's not supposed to happen. Stand by, gang.
Все в большинстве забивает Санкт-Петербург.
That was something I was going to show later was the Russian hockey. But, that was kind of not what I was looking for. Anyways, guys, Sanheim, again, four high danger chances for, and just 1 against. So considering his, he actually played 17 minutes tonight, which is pretty good numbers. But again, Taze and Makar played, 5 and 6 minutes more than that. For him to have those kind of numbers, I thought was pretty impressive. And for a guy who hasn't gotten a lot of recognition, I thought he deserved some recognition for that performance, which is why I chose Sanheim over both Doughty and Makar. Missed the game. Did Canada get pucks deep? They did okay with that. Cheese Wizard, they played okay. Certainly wasn't a dump and chase game if that's what you're asking about. They didn't sort of play that dump and, put pressure on the defense with the forecheck kind of game. They were, more focused on zone entries and things like that. This tournament has exposed Marner as a perimeter player that he is. Moving him away from McDavid was definitely the right move. Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I think Marner is the kind of guy who needs to have certain players around him. I don't know that moving him away from McDavid was the right move. I think he probably would be more productive offensively if he was playing with McDavid. Yeah, I mean, Marner's a bit of a mystery. So he has struggled. He hasn't played well. Despite the argument that I had earlier with Undefeated Sports, who apparently it looks like he may have left the show. Not Undefeated Sports. Cosmo earlier was arguing in favor of Marner playing pretty well. He's not the only player who has struggled, so I'm not going to jump down his throat. I'm not going to jump down his throat about that because I think there's other guys who aren't producing. I think secondary scoring has been a problem overall for Team Canada. But yeah, I mean, Marner is the kind of guy who I think needs certain players around him in order to succeed, and he may not have that right now. Anonymous says, is Marner showing that he needs Matthews? Well, he doesn't always play with Matthews, and he's done well in his career away from Matthews. So again, I don't know that he necessarily needs him, but I think he does need certain types of players. He needs somebody to, he's a playmaker. Obviously he's able to score goals. There's no doubt about that. But he needs guys to play off of, and he's not a guy who is going to, create on his own per se. So he does need those secondary guys. He is a bit of a perimeter player. I think that's not an unfair criticism that Cheese Wizard raises. I don't know that being a perimeter player is necessarily the worst thing in the world. There are a lot of perimeter players out there who do quite well, including Mitch Marner, right? He's obviously had a great career, and he's a guy who can put up 100-plus points any year that he plays in the league. So he's definitely able to produce. Obviously, it's going to be difficult to do that as a perimeter player when you get into tougher competition like the playoffs. But again, I think that if you surround him with the right people, that his game can be valuable. His game can be, his game has value, even in the tougher competition, playoffs, in tournaments like this. Am I watching Sweden versus U.S. tonight? I will almost certainly watch that game. Yes, Wendell. How about you? Will you be watching the game? I think it'll be a fun one to watch for sure. As a guy who watches Marner, I assume you mean every night. We all hate him until he does something good. He is struggling, but then he will go score a game winner. He's a very talented hockey player. But he doesn't. There are certain aspects of the game that he doesn't bring, which is fine. Not everybody brings every aspect of the game. But as far as scoring goes and putting up points and being offensively productive, he's very good. He's also a good two-way defender. He's smart. He knows where to be. He can block lanes. He can do whatever. But he's not going to be a guy who is super physical. He's not going to be a guy who retrieves a lot of pucks along the boards. He's not going to be a guy who wins a lot of battles. He's not going to be a guy who engages and cycles behind the net and that kind of thing. But again, he can succeed and has succeeded with the skill set that he has. And so, for me, his issues have not necessarily been his own. His issues have been with Toronto, that he doesn't really have the right guys around him in order for him to succeed. And the same can be said for Matthews and for Nylander and for that entire team. Marner and McDavid are similar in play. They're both pass-first players. Yeah, but I think McDavid can create more offense on his own. He's a little bit more physical. He's willing to take more contact. I think he's a more dynamic skater. than Marner is, and he can create his own scoring opportunities a little bit better than Marner. But you're right; they are pass first players. Although I think that McDavid is a pass first player by choice. I think if he decided that he wanted to shoot the puck more and be if somebody told him listen the only way for the Edmonton Oilers to win the Stanley Cup this year is if you're going to go out and score 70 goals. I tend to believe that he might be able to do that, right? And I think that he is a pass first player because of the situation that he faces with his team. In that he has other goal scorers around him. He has Draisaitl, who he doesn't always play with, but he has guys. It's easier for him to be a setup man and to set up those guys than it is for him to be the scorer and be set up by those guys. If that makes sense, right? It's easier for him to set up Draisaitl than perhaps the other way around. Although Draisaitl is a fantastic passer as well. I would have taken Scheifele or Suzuki or Marner over Marner, but I'm also not a coach, so I don't know. Again, I'm not going to get into criticism of roster building. I think that roster building is a very difficult thing, and I think that you need to have a certain plan in place and a certain philosophy and a certain mindset about what you want your team to look like when you do build a roster. And I certainly think that Mitch Marner is a player who deserves to be on Team Canada, right? He's good enough. He's played well enough. He's a good enough hockey player to do that. He's a good enough player to be on this team and to deserve that role, as is Scheifele and as is Suzuki. But again, there's lots of players who are deserving of being on Team Canada. It's a deep talent pool, and there's lots of guys that deserve to be there. Certainly more than 21 or 22 guys, would rightfully belong on Team Canada. So again, with the deep player talent pool and the fact that it's when you're building a team and you have a deep talent pool like that, you need to sort of have a strategy in mind about who you're going to have on your team, right? And John Cooper and Don Sweeney talked about it before the tournament started about what they were looking for when they picked the players for this roster, and they talked about going after gamers and winners. They went after guys who are gamers and winners, guys who've won Stanley Cups, guys who are gamers again. I mean, defining gamers, I guess, are guys who show up, guys who play the game the right way, whatever that means, guys who are willing to go through the wall for the team. Those kind of guys, and again, that's not to suggest that Scheifele and Suzuki aren't those guys. And maybe you could argue that Scheifele's more of a gamer than a Mitch Marner. Who knows? But again, I think that there's probably 30, 40 guys who, if they were on this roster, you would say they deserve to be there. And I think Mitch Marner is definitely one of those. I think Scheifele is one of those as well, and I think Suzuki is also. But again, the easiest thing in the world to do is to second guess roster selection, especially after a loss, right? It's easy. After the World Juniors, everyone was questioning the players that were selected for that team. I would suggest that those same criticisms wouldn't have occurred if they had won the gold medal. And again, you'll say, well, yeah, maybe if they picked the right players, they would have won the gold medal. But again, you have absolutely no way of knowing that. Hindsight is 20/20. So again, the players that are there certainly deserve to be there. And to me, I rarely criticize the players that do make the team. I think that I don't know that there's anybody on Team Canada that I would say shouldn't be there or don't belong there. Marner, Point, Hagel would be a better line against the USA bottom six. Better than what? What are you comparing that to, Gian? And welcome, Gian. I think you're new here. Welcome to the show. It's great to have you. And I'm not sure. I'm not sure that I have Marner in a bottom six role. Frankly, I don't think that he has the skill set for a bottom six role on any team, let alone a team like this. For me, if Marner's on your team, he needs to be in your top six. He's a point producer. Obviously, he's not he's not a liability defensively. He's a good two-way player. But to put him in a role that has a defensive component to it, I don't think is the right way. There's certainly better players to play that role than Mitch Marner. So again, I'm not sure I would have Mitch Marner on my team in a bottom six role. I feel like this fourth line is missing JT at center. Yeah. Again, I don't know that JT is a fourth line kind of guy. I don't know that obviously he's a veteran. I think he's a gamer, if we're defining that, but again, I don't know that his defensive bona fides, his defensive chops are what you look for or what you'd want to have in a fourth line player. I don't really have a problem with the fourth line. What was the fourth line tonight? It would have been Cirelli, Hagel, and Konechny? I don't have a problem with those guys. Obviously they haven't been awesome, but I think they've been okay. Again, going into the tournament, I wouldn't have said, Cirelli and Konechny and Hagel don't deserve to be there. Obviously I think the fact that the coaches are from Tampa Bay obviously helped those guys, but it is what it is, and I think there's a little bit of politics there that way. But again, I think that those guys are very deserving of being on Team Canada. I'm just blown away how Sid is more effective than everyone else on the ice, even at his age. I wish he was in a Canadian market so we could watch him more. Sid's a good hockey player, right? And he brings a lot to the equation. I don't think he's been as offensively productive as one would hope. But again, I think he's playing with an injury. I think that he brings far more to the equation than just that as well. Tonight, obviously he went out and shut things down when Finland looked like they might be ready to tie the game up. He went out there and kind of sorted things out. He's again, we talked about gamers and winners. There's no player that personifies gamer and winner more, I think, than Sidney Crosby in today's NHL. And he's a guy that I think anybody would have on their team at any time. And I'm with you 100% about being blown away by watching Sidney Crosby. I thought McDavid forced a lot of passing last game. He's got one of the best shots, and he should use it more. I don't disagree with that. I think they probably all need to shoot a little bit more. Again, I don't think they've been over 30 shots in any game yet this tournament. They could be. Tonight, I was disappointed, as I said earlier in the show, that they shut things down. After they got the 4-0 lead, they seemed to sort of let off the gas a little bit and kind of put it on cruise control, which I thought was a big mistake. I think they should have just continued to pour it on. And I would have liked to have seen them sort of go out and win 7-1 or 8-1, if for no other reason than to carry some momentum offensively into the final against the U.S. The decision that they appear to have made to sort of back off a little bit and go into a defensive shell, I think, was not the right decision. Marchand, Bennett, Konechny was the fourth line. Marner, Cirelli, Hagel was the third line, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. Let's just see. Team Canada lines. So I got Crosby, McKinnon, Reinhart, Point, McDavid, Stone, Hagel, Cirelli, Marner, Marchand, Bennett, Konechny. Yeah, I don't love that. I don't know. I don't like Marner in a bottom six role. I don't like Marchand in a bottom six role, to be honest with you either. But it is what it is, and the game's over now. To me, Marner's wasted on the bottom six. Maybe that's why he's not producing as well as he could be. I don't know. Did I hear in the game that Sid is 26-1 in international games? Yes. He was 25-0 prior to Saturday's game against the U.S. It was 25-0 as captain, I think, or something. I don't remember. It's something like that. Yeah, I think in the U.S. game, Anonymous, I think that the Americans did a really good job, sort of shutting down or closing off McKinnon and McDavid. You hear analysts talk about gap control, right? Gap control refers to not backing off the forwards as much or too much when they're sort of coming in on you. You want to close the gap a little bit. You don't want to give them room to be creative and to do the things that they're capable of doing. So I thought the Americans were really good with their gap control and forcing, not allowing McKinnon and McDavid to sort of gather speed and make the moves that they're capable of making at top speed. They sort of forced them to either pass or to dump the puck in or create turnovers. And I thought they did a really good job of that. I don't think that McDavid or McKinnon really were able to get off the way they like to against the Americans. And that, I think was, less so about McKinnon and McDavid and more so about the American defense. So, again, another reason why I just really was disappointed to see them let their foot off the gas tonight when I thought they had a chance to sort of, get that momentum a little bit and build towards the game against the U.S. or the final game, to get some confidence and whatever. And, so with gap control works both ways, right? Is, players like McKinnon and McDavid, you can try and close the gap a little bit and force them. But again, with their talents, they can also, if they're rolling and they're feeling it, they can also force the defense back. With their speed and with their puck handling, they can force the defense back and make the defense give them room. And if they don't, then that's when they can sort of blow around them and do the things that they do so well. So I thought that this was an opportunity for them to sort of get that confidence and get that momentum, so that when they do play the U.S., that they had a little bit more of that going into it, and they were ready for that. So, I was just disappointed that they decided to sort of, shut things down late in the game when I don't think that they really, they didn't need to, first of all. And second of all, to me, it showed a lack of, perhaps, awareness of the situation they find themselves in, right? Tonight, obviously, or this afternoon, the goal ultimately was to win the game against Finland and make it to the final. But, in the bigger picture, it's, the entirety of the tournament. There's things that needed to be done in this game tonight for Canada that were relevant to the bigger picture, I guess, if I'm, putting it in those terms. Will there be a Stanley Cup type celebration after the finals? I don't know if I would say it will be a Stanley Cup type celebration. I think it'll be a celebration. I think the players of the winning team will be pretty hyped up and excited about winning this tournament. We've seen the energy and the energy that they've brought to this tournament and how important this tournament appears to be to all of them. Despite the fact that a lot of people thought it was a made-up tournament and really wouldn't mean a whole lot. The players have certainly reversed that narrative, and so I think they'll be very excited to win. I don't think, when you win the Stanley Cup, you've been battling for a month and a half, and you're playing every second day. And it's just going to be a different feeling than that. But at the same time, I think it'll probably be a pretty big, they'll be very happy to win that cup, and there'll probably be a pretty big party afterwards. But I don't think it will be on the same level as a Stanley Cup victory. I think there'll probably be, a trophy ceremony on the ice, and the players will do their laps with the cup, and there'll be a lot of hooting and hollering and whatever. But again, I don't know that I would compare it to winning a Stanley Cup. So, but no, I think it'll be a big deal. Certainly a bigger deal than a lot of people might have thought it would have been at the outset of the tournament. So. We're awfully quiet here, guys. It seems to be a pretty small. I mean, maybe tonight, we don't expect too much as far as viewership goes on a Monday afternoon or Monday evening, I guess now. Do you guys want to keep going here, or have we exhausted our conversation for tonight's game? Are we done talking about the final upcoming against the U.S.? So, it'll be a big game against the U.S. coming up on Thursday. We'll see tonight. I believe that the Americans will be sitting a few of their players tonight. Tkachuk will be out of the lineup. He, of course, is injured. We'll see whether or not these 3 or 4 days off will be enough for him to return to the lineup. Hellebuck, I think, will get the night off tonight, and so that'll give him some rest. And I believe we'll probably see another player or two sat down for the Americans to give them a little bit of a breath prior to Thursday's final against Canada. I think the game will be exciting. It'll be in Boston, so the roles will be reversed a little bit as far as the home and the visiting team. The game will be at the TD Center in Boston, and so the Canadiens will be the visitors. Yeah, McAvoy, I believe, is also sitting out. Yeah, anonymous. So again, this will be, the roles will be reversed. The Canadiens will be playing in enemy territory. I suspect that the Canadian anthem will get roundly booed, which is fine. It is what it is. It's just a song, guys. I know that it stands and it has symbolism, but at the end of the day, it is just that, a symbol. I'm not going to get too riled up about the Americans booing the anthem. The reality is that they don't probably know what they're even, booing for. I don't know that we'll get the shenanigans at the beginning of the game that we got on Saturday night. I was talking to a friend of mine earlier, and I thought how awesome it would be if Nathan MacKinnon challenged Matthew Tkachuk to a fight on the opening face-off. I think that would be pretty cool because, first of all, I think Nathan MacKinnon would beat the shit out of Matthew Tkachuk if they did fight. And second of all, I think that Matthew Tkachuk likely would probably not want to make that fight. He wouldn't want to be in that fight because he doesn't typically like to fight guys that have any chance of giving him any type of challenge whatsoever. And I think he probably would try and chicken out of that fight, which again, either way, I think Canada gains a little bit of momentum out of that. But again, I don't foresee that happening. But a MacKinnon challenging, again, no warning. Don't talk to him during the warm up. Don't tell him that you're going to do it. Just go out there on the first face off and walk up to him, and as soon as the puck's dropped, slash him in the legs and say, "Let's go." And if he wants to puss out of it, then he's going to look like that. And if he decides to drop the gloves, then I think that Nathan MacKinnon will likely manhandle him quite easily. Not easily, I shouldn't say that. It won't be easy, but if you've seen Nathan MacKinnon, he's probably one of the strongest physical players in the NHL. And when he's had the opportunity to show that in the past, he's been pretty tough. Again, he's not the best fighter in the world, but he's pretty dang strong. And I think that he would throw Matthew Tkachuk around a little bit. And Matthew Tkachuk probably knows that, which is why I suspect that he might try and do anything he can to not take that fight. Any thoughts on a show on the future of Canadian goaltending prospects? I don't know, Billy D. I hadn't really thought about it. Typically, as you know, I will focus on the Montreal Canadiens as opposed to larger picture hockey stuff on my show, particular on particularly on Habs Therapy Day. I'm happy to talk about the Montreal Canadiens goaltending prospects. I'm pretty familiar with those guys. As far as, the Canadian, as in from Canada goaltending prospects coming up, I don't know a ton. I mean, obviously there's Devin Levi, who's up and coming. And then we have, the guys that are in the league right now: Hill, Thompson, Montembeault, Binnington, those guys. But as far as, the guys who are in the minors in the American League or coming up for Canada, I don't really know a ton about them. Not really my strength to talk about that. So, I mean, again, for Montreal, I'm Jacob Fowler and Mikas Vikvaneks and Volokin and Dobash and Primo. I can give you a little bit about those guys. Conte Miller, but yeah, I mean, if you really want me to do it, Billy, let me know, and I can certainly do some research and try and put something together. But again, it's not an area that I feel I have a ton of knowledge or expertise about. I mean, we could certainly, if we want to spend 10 seconds, we could go over standby. Scott Wheeler just put out his goaltending prospects, top 25, I think, goaltending prospects. You're absolutely right about Nate being able to handle himself. He has shown that on a few occasions over the last few years. Nathan McKinnon is a guy who takes care of himself, makes sure that he's strong and able to do whatever it takes on the ice. He doesn't fight very often because it's not really worth his while or his team's while for him to fight. But so let's see here. Top 20 drafted goaltending prospects. So number 1 is Yaroslav Askarov, Russian. Number 2 is Jacob Fowler, American. Number 3 is Sebastian Kosa, Canadian. So there's a guy. Detroit draft pick 2021. 6'6", 225. So there's one goalie on the horizon. Jesper Wallstedt is number 4. He is Swedish. Devin Levi, a Canadian, is number 5, 6', 192. Drafted by Buffalo in 2020. Trey Augustine is number 6. He is Detroit draft pick 2023. He is American. Michael Rabel. He is a Czech goalie, 6'7", 215. Ilya Nabokov, a Russian, 6', 179, drafted by Colorado in 2024 in just this last draft. Hampton Slukinski, American, 6'2", 185, drafted this 2023 by the Kings. Carter George, you guys will probably know Carter George. LA Kings draft pick this past year. He is Canadian, so he's another one on the horizon. Levi Merilainen, Ottawa Senators. He recently played a few games for the Senators. He is Finnish. Carl Lindholm is number 12. He is Swedish. Jakub Dobash, again, the Canadiens fans will know Jakub Dobash, drafted by Montreal in 2020. He is Czech. He is number 13. Mikhail Yegorov is number 14. Russian. Yegor Zavragin. He is number 15. He is Russian as well. Sergei Murashov, also Russian, number 16. Joel Blomqvist, Finnish, 17. Marcus Gidloff, Swedish, 6'6", 212. New York Islanders draft pick last year. Evan Gardner is Canadian, drafted by Columbus last year. And Sergei Ivanov. So the Canadians in the top 20 are Evan Gardner, Carter George, Devin Levi, and Sebastian Cosa. So those I guess are the names. I mean, if you're a follower or a believer of in Scott Wheeler, those are the guys that are sort of on the horizon for Canada. I'm sure there are a few others. I know that in this year's draft, there is Ivan Kovic is in the mix to be the number one goalie drafted in this year's draft. So we'll see. I guess you've got two guys in the top 5. That's not terrible. Between Cosa and Levi. But again, those are two guys who have been drafted and have been around for a while now. They're not, they're not new guys. And certainly with Levi, he has shown that he might not quite be ready for prime time as of yet. He's been talked about for quite some time. He was drafted in 2020. So he was drafted 4 years ago by Buffalo and hasn't yet broken into the NHL. And has struggled a little bit when he has been in the NHL. And maybe that's, part of playing in Buffalo, which, they've struggled themselves. So I wonder why we are not seeing many goalies coming out of La Belle Province. Again, a good question, Billy D. I don't know how old you are, but people of my generation will remember a time when all of the best goalies came out of Quebec. Luongo, Brodeur, Roy, the list goes on and on. Even though Brodeur is maybe the most overrated goalie of all time, discussion for another time. But the goalies that came out of Quebec during the sort of late 80s through the 90s and even into the early 2000s were there was a pretty impressive parade of goaltenders that came out of Quebec, and Quebec is not producing. So again, I have no idea what the answer is to why that's not happening anymore. Presumably, it has a lot to do with coaching, and it has to do with different organizational things within minor hockey in Quebec, which I don't know enough about to comment intelligently on. So I won't. But again, it's just I don't know. It is what it is, right? The Quebec League, has a lot of, and the NHL has changed their approach. You can't be a goalie in the NHL anymore unless you're over 6 feet tall. It's an aberration to see goaltenders who aren't 6 feet taller or bigger. We saw, I'm in Halifax. Mathis Russo, really good goalie for the Halifax Mooseheads, played on the World Junior team in each of the last 2 years, or did he just play? Anyways, World Junior goalie, best goalie in the Quebec League for probably 3 years in a row. Can't get drafted, right? Doesn't even get it. He's going to go on he'll get an opportunity as a free agent to make an NHL team, but he's 5'11", and he's not going to get a chance to get drafted. He'll have to fight his way as a free agent into an NHL team if he wants to play in the NHL. We're seeing. I think there's 2 goalies of note, I guess, who are under 6 feet in the NHL right now, and that would be Dustin Wolf and UC Saros. But beyond that, if you're not 6'2", 6'3", or bigger, you're not really going to get much of a chance. You're not really going to get much of a chance in the league. So even if we look through this list of the prospects, right? Askarov 6'4", Fowler 6'2", Cosa 6'6", Wallstead 6'3", Levi 6 foot even, Augustine 6'1", Rabel 6'7", Nabokov 6 foot even, Hampton Slukinski 6'2", Carter George 6'1", Levi Marilainen 6'3", Carl Lindholm 6'1", Jakub Dobesh 6'4", Mikhail Yegorov 6'5", right? So if you're not sort of in that 6'2", so, you're not really getting much of a chance. You're certainly not getting a chance if you're not 6 feet tall. And, I don't know if I believe that or agree with that. Obviously, somebody smarter than I am has made that decision. So, But I think that's going to be just about it, guys. I see that there's only 3 people watching at the moment. The numbers are down. I was hoping for a bigger turnout tonight. I guess Thursday will have to be the big night for everybody. We will go live after the game on Thursday, so if you are interested, come on back and join us. We'd love to have you. If you're over on TikTok, same applies. Thank you for the likes, Marcus, over there. More so, I would love for you to come over and join us on YouTube and become a subscriber. That goes for everybody, right? If you're watching right now, hit that subscribe button. The button, I believe, is right here below the screen. Give us a thumbs up. Hit the notification bell. Same applies if you're watching in a replay. I know not everybody has the time or the opportunity to watch while we're live, and you can come back and watch the show afterwards. We love that too, and if you are doing so, then we would certainly ask that you subscribe. I love doing this, but I also love providing a place where I can talk and you can talk and we can all talk intelligently and civilly about hockey, and more particularly about the Montreal Canadiens. But again, if you want to talk about your team, I'm happy to do my best to talk about that. But again, we try and keep it civil. We try and keep it above board. We try and keep it objective. We're not into the rah-rah, my team's awesome, your team sucks kind of stuff. We're here to have intelligent conversations about our favorite sport and our favorite teams. And I would love to be able to grow this community so that we can provide a place for all of you guys to do that. Right now we have Habs After Dark, which is a show that airs approximately 10 minutes after every Montreal Canadiens game. We go live and we talk about the game. We talk about the Canadiens, and we talk about some of the relevant issues that are, at play at the time. We also do a weekly show on Wednesday evenings at 7 p.m. Eastern Time called Habs Therapy Day, and that's more of a generalized show about the Canadiens where we talk about, current events, weekend review, topics that are pertinent to the Canadiens at the time. And we do, some focus on prospects and so on and so forth. And if you're interested in that, Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, 8 p.m. my time here in Halifax. Again, I'm conscious of stepping on toes. I don't want to bump into Coach Frenchie, who I know does a show on Wednesday night and has been good to me. And so I don't want to sort of trample on his time. And I'm sure, I'll get more viewers if I'm not, going on the air at the same time as him as well. So anyways, guys, all of that to say, I really appreciate everybody for coming by. Billy D, Anonymous, everybody else that came by. Not the biggest turnout tonight, but again, I appreciate those of you that did come by. I do appreciate your comments. And if you are watching on a replay, feel free to post your comments in the, in the comment section below. I have a couple of comments that I am actually going to respond to after this show is over. That I haven't gotten around to, but I do normally. And so if you are watching in a replay and you do have some questions or some comments or some criticisms or whatever, feel free. I have big shoulders. Don't be scared to let me know what you think of the show. If you think that there's things that we can do better, if you think that there's things that we do really well, we accept compliments too. So that's pretty much it for now, guys. Again, subscribers, we're looking for subscribers, guys. We want to get to 500. We're only around 285 right now. It's been a bit of a slow go right now. With all of that, I think that things will pick up if the Canadiens start to win a few more games. But anyways, it is what it is. But we do appreciate everybody for coming. Thank you so much. Thank you for your contributions. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for your comments. Again, we appreciate it, and we do hope to see you on Thursday after the game. Peace out. Thank you, Billy D. We appreciate you as well.
Hoffman, Monahan parked in front. Dr. Caulfield fires, scores!
You are about to enter Habs After Dark with Recliner Sports.